Equatorial Guinea was a Spanish colony up until 1968. It is the only Spanish-speaking country in sub-Saharan Africa. All the neighboring countries speak French. And majority of countries in Africa speak either French or English, right? You have a few that speak Portuguese. But Equatorial Guinea is the only Spanish-speaking country in sub-Saharan Africa. Between 1968 and 1979, Equatorial Guinea was under the rule of a brutal dictator, Francisco Macías Nguema, who took over immediately after independence, and within a year of being in power had kicked out all the Spanish and other foreign nationals. And within 3 to 5 more years of being in power, about a third of the population had fled the country, seeking exile in Cameroon, Gabon, Spain, and other countries. In 1979, the current president, President Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, killed his uncle, Francisco Macías, and took over power. 1979. Today, 33 years later, President Obiang is still in power. President Obiang runs a regime that is characterized by human rights violations, by corruption. When one looks at the list of most corrupt countries from Transparency International rankings, Equatorial Guinea is always top 5. When one looks at a list from the Freedom House, countries where there is no freedom, Equatorial Guinea is always in the top 5. When one looks at the Committee to Protect Journalists list of countries that are closed, where there is no freedom of expression, there is no freedom of the press, Equatorial Guinea is always top 5. Right? So we're talking about a country that is characterized by human rights violations, a country that still tortures prisoners as a way of extracting confessions, a country that, despite being the third largest oil-producing nation in Africa, third only to Nigeria and Angola, where the GDP per capita is comparable to that of Japan and France, 75% of the people in that country, in Equatorial Guinea, live on less than $1 a day. Richest country in Africa per capita wise, with 75% of the population living on less than $1 a day. Where does the money go? Right? President Obiang's son owns a mansion in Malibu, California, $35 million estate. President Obiang's son right now, whose name is also Teodoro, there is an arrest warrant issued by the authorities in France for his arrest for money laundering and fraud. They have seized from a property owned and enjoyed by the Obiang family in France artwork, furniture worth tens of millions of dollars. They have seized 11 luxury sport cars worth millions of dollars. And that's where the money goes, in living a flamboyant lifestyle outside Equatorial Guinea, while people in Equatorial Guinea do not have running water, while people, my nieces and nephew, must fetch water in buckets every morning, study with a kerosene lamp, go to school half naked, without shoes. That is the situation in Equatorial Guinea today. There are 7 ethnic groups in Equatorial Guinea. The majority ethnic group is about 80% of the population, and this is the Fang, F-A-N-G, the Fang people. President Obiang happens to be from the majority ethnic group. Territorially, looking at geographically rather, Equatorial Guinea can be divided in, say, 3 sections. One is a continental side, which is on the mainland, on the continent. And then there is the island of Bioko, which is where the capital sits. The capital of Equatorial Guinea is Malabo, and that sits on Bioko. And then there is a further island, Annobon, south of the hemisphere, and that is where I'm from. And even though you have these 3 regions, you still have 7 different ethnic groups. One dominant one that, since independent, has controlled political power, economic power, and military power. President Obiang has skillfully used the fact that the Fangs are the majority to divide the society in Equatorial Guinea. So while it is true that most people in government today are from one ethnic group, it is not true that the Fangs, for instance, in general, are discriminating against minorities. But what happened, is that even among the people from the Fang ethnic group, you have divisions. And President Obiang has used those divisions and clans to give the perception that the Fang dominate the country. And right now, unfortunately for us, especially those of us in the diaspora trying to look for a way out of the conundrum that we find ourselves, we are, I would say, overemphasizing the ethnic divisions in the country to an extent that it is preventing us from focusing on what is important, which is freedom from a tyrannical government and democracy, a society in which we can all share equally in its wealth, equally in its burdens.